Welcome back to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk. We're back on Devil's Advocate, talking all things Manchester United. Joining me today, we have Keane. Keane, how you doing?
Very good, Greg. Thanks for asking, and absolutely delighted to be back to club football. Look, it's the World Cup's been good. Being Irish, I didn't have a horse in the race this year, but always really. But yeah,
Well,
look,
you did. Whoever was playing England.
well, yeah,
So
maybe, but yeah, but look, it's great to be back to club football, especially the fact, look, going over to the game now on Wednesday as well. So yeah, look, glad to be back, and look, as always, there's always a story or two about United that's always worth talking about.
Certainly is, and there's loads to talk about today. Also joining us is Phil Brown. Phil, how are you getting on?
Doing good, lads. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. So as Keane said, obviously there's lots to cover. There's games coming up for Manchester United for the first time in a month now. There's takeover talk, there's Ronaldo talk, there's transfer talk, there's loads of things to cover. A little bit on a sponsorship situation as well. Sticking with the football side of things, first of all, obviously coming up on Wednesday, Manchester United face Burnley in the Carabao Cup.
Yeah.
Carabao Cup. Manchester United at home. Keane, myself, and you are going, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to the game. That'll be good, hopefully, as long as Vincent Kompany doesn't sort of direct a masterclass against us, I suppose. I want to. What are you hoping to see on Wednesday more so than anything? If we look on the football side of things, first of all, what would be, obviously other than a result, what do you think would be like, but they've had a month off, so what would be success on Wednesday other than a result? Is it just a case of getting the team out there and winning, or do you think there has to be clear signs that things have been worked on over the last 3.5, 4 weeks? Come to you with that, Keane.
Yeah, look, I think first of all, when you look at the majority of the players who are probably going to play on Wednesday, it's they've been working with Ten Hag over the last 3 to 4 weeks. So look, I'm hoping that there's stuff been done on the training ground that we can see more of his style of play being implemented much more. I think I'm very interested to see the likes Christian Eriksen and that coming back from the World Cup a bit early. So I'll be interested to see how they get on, especially the fact Denmark did struggle as well. So be interested to see how he gets on. And yeah, look, it's the first trophy we have a chance of winning this season. And I think look, people laugh at the Carabao Cup, but look, if you look at previous clubs and previous United teams have gone on to win that trophy, it's been a springboard to success. So I mentioned to you before, Greg, if you look at Fergie's rebuild, kind of 2006 onwards to win the three-peat in the Champions League, the first trophy he won in that rebuild was the Carabao Cup, and it was a young team, and there was a springboard for success. So look, I hope that the Carabao Cup can be that, especially the fact when you look at likes of Chelsea been knocked out of it. There's other clubs in there as well. Obviously City and Liverpool as well are playing each other. So look, one of the big guns are going to be going out this week. Hopefully Liverpool, by the way, but it's one of them where, look, Manchester United, regardless of what's going on off the pitch, the Glazers and stuff like that, I know we're going to touch on in a while. I still want to see us be successful on the pitch, and I'd like to see wins games of football, win trophies, and adheres to the history and traditions of the club. So, look, first and foremost, I want to see us get the win, play a good game of football, and look, as you said, hopefully Vincent Kompany doesn't come and do a job on us, because look, at the end of the day, if you look at Burnley this season, I think he's actually done a quite good job with him. He hasn't played football this season as well. He hasn't played very good football, which is not really associated with Burnley themselves as well either. So yeah, looking forward to the game, looking forward to United being back, and yeah, let's go.
Yeah, well, it's got to be a win, surely. I can't be going to Old Trafford for a 200-mile or 400-mile round trip to watch us lose to Burnley, or I hope not anyway. Phil, coming to you, slightly on the on the field side, but also off the field as well. I want to ask you about sort of Jadon Sancho and the stories that's been going on around him over the last few weeks. There's obviously reports and things that he's not training with Manchester United just now. He's away from the team, trying to sort of refocus himself and get back into it. What are your thoughts on that sort of thing? Is this something that, does this feel like a last chance saloon sort of thing for Sancho, or do you think Ten Hag it's just the first step of Ten Hag trying to rebuild him as the player?
I don't think it's anywhere near last chance for him, but I think if you looked at Jadon Sancho against Chelsea, he looked like a young man with the world on his shoulders. He's allowed to be a human being and affected by the regular vicissitudes of life that you and I are affected by. There is no point in a human being's life where they make a certain amount of money or achieve a certain occupation status where they stop becoming human. I mean, these people deal with the same bullshit you and I deal with. They're dealing with, screaming kids. They're dealing with, messed up relationships at home. I mean, they're not walking around all day thinking, how much money have I got in the bank? And you know what, I played for Manchester United. 95% of their life is the same as yours.
Yeah.
And they're dealing with the same bullshit. And they're dealing with it in the same way that you and I would, where it causes enormous stress. They have to be a lot more careful in the sense that everything makes the papers. But there's certain points when you don't want to be a footballer, and one of those is when you want medical privacy. And I really worry for human civilization, taking a look at Twitter, in the fact that we saw a 9-year-old Moroccan girl being threatened with being raped after she criticised Ronaldo. It's fucking insane. It's just absolutely insane. And now you've got idiots like Simon Jordan and other arseholes online saying that if Jadon Sancho isn't fit to play for Manchester United, he shouldn't be paid. I mean, what absolute nonsense. I assume every player that gets injured should they not be paid. I assume that when anyone signs a human being, it's implied in the contract that they're going to suffer from human issues, right? And so I find it really sad. And I think United and Ten Hag have done the right thing. They look. I don't want to speculate because I don't know personally exactly what's going on with Jadon Sancho, and even if I did, I wouldn't put it out here.
Yeah.
Because I think there's certain things. Fine if you've got a hamstring injury, if you've got a groin injury, then. But there's certain things that you don't need to know. And I also supported Ronaldo's right to privacy in the summer with certain personal issues. So I think Jadon Sancho should be given empathy, and whatever the situation is with him, he should be 100% supported.
Yeah, and let's come in on that, Greg, as well.
Yeah.
Like we've seen, like especially if you look at our club in particular, we've seen this football club have a lot of issues in the last 2-3 years. Like Jesse had issues off the pitch with his mother and his family, and that he did come out about that and really affected by that. Marcus had issues last season as well, off the pitch, and it quite visibly affected his form on the pitch as well. Like I think, when you look at the footballers are human. I think in modern society right now, I think they're expected to be these soulless robots that don't have any feeling and can't be affected by mental health like you, me, or Phil or anyone can feel like. So look, I hope first and foremost, whatever's happening off the pitch, that it gets sorted, and look, he can, first and foremost be okay, and then when he's able to return, then look, the reception he's going to get at Old Trafford. We do look after our own, and look.
I think a bigger question, lads, is United need to ask themselves, why do so many players feel this way? And what's the working environment like at Old Trafford?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's a bigger question. We always come out and say, if this guy wants to leave, we should get rid of him and bin this guy and bin this guy and bin this guy. But if anyone ever asks why do players feel this way? Why does, not just players, by the way, I'm talking about the staff in general. Why is there such a toxic... why is there such a toxic working environment at the football club? Who allowed that to happen? Because that's the fault of upper management. They set the control parameters of what's acceptable and what's not. And if you're working in a toxic environment, it is utterly impossible to get the best out of any human being in that environment, whether you're an office administrator or whether you're Jadon Sancho or whether, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You cannot perform in any environment if you're not happy. You're going to deal with other issues. And so one of the things that we saw last season, lads, on those players' faces was that the squad was filled with players that didn't want to be there. Now, this used to be a football club where we would say, after Manchester United, the only way is down. But now you've got players that are desperate to leave. And I think it's not fair to turn around and always blame the players. I think at some point we also have to ask, and I do believe that Ten Hag is trying to fix this problem. And I think this is what happens when you have absentee landlords that don't put control parameters in, that focus everything on profit, not how you treat human beings, not, because some of these things are costly. It's costly to be empathetic. And when things have a material cost, we find out how much people really believe in them. Like, we saw at the World Cup, of course, how quickly people abandon those armbands once they had a material cost. United have done a lot of things right, like opening their stadium over Christmas for the homeless and everything. That's amazing.
Yeah.
They're definitely trying to fix some of these problems internally. But I would be more concerned about why there isn't an environment at that football club that's solely designed to get the best out of human beings, athletes.
Yeah, it certainly seems like there needs to be some sort of cultural shift from the top down, and obviously it's going to come on to the Glazers that we are going to talk about very soon. But yeah, I completely agree. There's too many situations of players coming to Manchester United that are great players and not just being not the same player on the pitch, but not being the same sort of player off the pitch. And you see it when they leave or they retire or something like that. And there's been a few in the last little while that I've talked about all the time at Man United was a hard time, and it shouldn't be. It should be. It certainly was at points. You would hope these players highlights of their career where they should be winning everything, and not just that, enjoying their football and being in an institution that can support that. And that's hopefully what we're getting to. What we're getting to now with Ten Hag. I agree with you completely, Phil. I think a lot of people giving Sancho stick don't know a lot of what's going on. Because it wasn't just that he wasn't performing on the pitch. He didn't look like he was enjoying himself.
No, listen.
Enjoying his football. He was just off.
I think part of this problem is incentives, lads. Because United incentivise players to be individuals. And you can't have a collective success when everyone's treated as their own individual brand. Because as soon as things go wrong, they brief their PR teams to brief against their teammates. Wasn't my fault. Wasn't my fault. Wasn't my fault. And it's, one of the things we've seen an end to this season is those social media long-winded apology bullshit. Right? You apologise on the field. You don't apologise on Twitter. Right? There is no apology that's written by a PR team that is acceptable. So when you have United, by their very nature, pitting people against each other, turning them into individual brands so that they can monetize those individual brands, don't be surprised that you attract supporters who don't support even the team, never mind the club. They support individuals because United monetize that and encourage it. And I think this is part of what new owners will bring to United is, look, we're going to monetize the collective success of the team, not the individual brands. I mean, the Ronaldo signing was sold by Woodward to the Glazers based solely on his commercial value without any impact, with any thought about what that will do to the dressing room.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to bring this comment up here because I am interested in it. Did Rangnick compile the toxic atmosphere by drawing attention to it last season? Then obviously you have players like Ronaldo, Dean Henderson, Lingard, Lee Grant, other senior players like that starting unrest in the dressing room. Do you think that last year Rangnick coming out and calling it out has progressed the situation, or do you think it just sort of knocked the movement back? Is
that the mayor came out?
To you, Phil, and then I'll go to Keane.
So basically, obviously Rangnick walked into a mess. And I was over at Old Trafford last December. I was talking to people at the club, and Rangnick was just there at the time. Not long there, they didn't like him, partly because, to be fair to Rangnick, he's coming into a situation he doesn't have all the information. All he sees is players acting like, this is a madhouse. No wonder there's no discipline. So he rightfully goes after players, but players felt betrayed because they said, "Wait a minute, you're going out there digging us out in public, but you're not telling the whole story because you're not telling the reason why we feel this way. You're not telling about the things that the club have done, about the broken promises to players that we're going to do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. We're going to bring this in. We're going to invest here. None of those promises were kept. I mean, I know it was ridiculed at the time, but when Alexis Sanchez said he wanted to leave after the first week, there's been the antecedents to this go way back. This is something that has been propagated and perpetuated for years as a result of the football club's focus. But now the problem for United is there is no more money to squeeze. So now they have to behave like a football club. So necessity will dictate that they get this right, because the other method is come to the end of the road.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do agree with some of the comments they're saying, Rangnick. I do think he did the right thing in some sort of bringing it to light, but that maybe not in public in the way he sort of did it. Um, so I think that fits in perfectly to obviously the biggest Manchester United story over the last, is it 2 months now? Maybe it's 6 weeks since we got the first initial brief. Phil, I know you've been talking about this for a lot longer on your pod and things like that. You hinted to it a long time ago. People were sort of guessing things that were going on. But there was some sort of development over the last 24, 48 hours. Phil, you can tell me if I got this right, but am I right in saying TeamViewer have said that if there's any, basically, if Manchester United wish, they can buy out the payment for the team for the sponsorship, and it would basically get TeamViewer early, but Man United would still get the money. Is that correct? So basically, they wouldn't be
Yeah.
on the
So,
first
but
sponsor
look,
going forward.
yeah. So there's an option to buy the contract out,
Right.
which United will happily do if they can find another shirt sponsor that will give them more money than what they've got before. That's what's contingent upon.
Right.
TeamViewer obviously notified United in the summer of their intention to not renew the contract once it expired, and there was major issues internally about the value of that commercial partnership, which of course they did with a number of organization with another Formula One, other aspects, other sports that they invest in, and that's of course companies can over leverage and get overextended, and these things happen. It's not always a bad reflection on United. If it was just TeamViewer, I would say okay, these things happen, but it's not just TeamViewer. The fact is, if you look at United's commercial revenue since 2016, they're making 50 million a year less than what they were. Now,
Wow.
since then, they've had a new shirt sponsor, so it shouldn't be less. In fact, if you look at the jump in 2015, it was largely down to Adidas, that new deal. And if you look at, you compare and contrast United's commercial revenue depreciation with their European rivals. I mean, Real Madrid's commercial revenue increased during COVID, right? So
Yeah.
I keep hearing all these excuses, but the fact of the matter is, Xavi fired the guy that negotiated the last sponsorship deal. Nike refused to renew the contract on the terms that United wanted because they didn't think it was commercially viable. Adidas, there's a difference. Remember, this contract was negotiated 10 years ago. It's possible that they'll get more of Adidas, adjusting for inflation and everything else. If they don't get more of Adidas, something's radically wrong. But as the accounts have shown, Manchester United as a commercial entity are no longer attracting top dollar because there's too many alternatives. The biggest commercial asset just walked out the door, right? So now you're looking at a Manchester United that are trying to do this differently. They can no longer gimmick their way to advertising contracts, because the game's up, right? The fans are no longer being appeased by this, by a 33-year-old Cavani or by a Ronaldo or someone that sells shirts. Um, and now they have to do the harder thing and be successful on the pitch and monetize it that way. That takes time, and it can't be done under the current ownership. So when one of the biggest problems for United that hasn't been the case in previous years, for example, 2010, 11, when the protests were happening in 2005, is all these sponsors are easily accessible now. So
Yeah.
what's being said in boardrooms when they're trying to attract these sponsors about how great their fan equity is, you sponsor a football club, our fans will buy your shit, doesn't translate in the real world. Because as soon as they go on Twitter and announce a partnership, and by its very nature, any commercial partnership has to be amplified, it has to be exaggerated. I mean, that's the whole point what you're paying for. They're getting deluged with,
Yeah.
Yelp reviews, and, their people are getting deluged, and they're going, what are we paying for here? This is not what we're paying for. This is not a feel-good fact. And so the Glazers, sorry to give you a long-winded answer, have clearly had a very deliberate strategy since the summer of silencing both Glazer out individuals who have a large following, which is something very different from what they've done before. And they're clearly confiscating flags, banners, asking Sky to edit it, which of course is a gift to the Glazer out movement because it shows their weakness. And so over fetishizing this does the opposite, of course.
Yeah.
So if you want to, you show your hand to the enemy, then you show your weakness, then that's where they'll attack. So to me, it's the equivalent of a boxer with a cut eye. They start getting targeted. So I think United are in a serious situation financially. Regardless of how this is spun, it's a disaster for them in the sense that the next commercial contract will be predicated on the value of the previous one. That's how negotiations work. So
Right.
if I'm a potential sponsor and I'm looking at what TeamViewer did and I'm looking at what Chevy did, I'm going, and I'm doing my due diligence before I spend that type of money and going, do I really want my people attacked? Do I want my brand attacked?
Yeah.
So I don't see any prospect for United increasing their commercial value and getting a better deal than what they got in 2020.
That all makes sense. And Keane, I am aware that I'm coming to Phil a lot, but just
Sorry,
in terms
man.
of,
Yes.
of this, no, it's just in terms of this side of things. I think Phil's probably the best person to ask. So I will come back to you in a minute, Keane, with a question. But what happens? What's the next 6 months look like for Manchester United then, Phil? What happens? What happens? Are we sat here in July next year with new owners? And
Yeah, I
is the
think so.
magic wand being waved and is everything better? Or are we sat here in July with new owners or potential new owners? Or are we sat in here in July with new investment and the Glazers still have a stake and a share? What is our way out? Because me and Keane did a show a couple of months ago and it finally looked like light at the end of the tunnel was there, and it is getting closer and closer. But I feel like a lot of fans, especially on Twitter and things like that, want it to be tomorrow. And
Of course.
it's not going to be that. So what happens now? Is it July, or is it going to be a year? Is it going to be 3 months? What happens?
With the Glazers, you never had to be in the know to know what their next move is.
Yeah.
It's just a basic logical extrapolation that they follow the money. And so when the end game for the Glazers, and United fans have been saying this for 20 years, or 15 years, 17 years, will be when they run out of money. And here we are. They run out of money. The club denied their dividend payments because obviously they're a publicly traded company, and therefore those dividends are contingent upon certain financial markers being met, which they weren't met. So the question is, what's the incentive for them to own United when they can't take money out? Zero. The football club needs money put in. Do they want to dilute their ownership of the football club to invest that back in the football club? I highly doubt that. Would anyone want to own a partial part of Manchester United with the Glazers still there, knowing that everything faces depreciation with their presence, everything? I don't see that happening. Most of the time when people are investing that type of money, there's one of two people doing it. It's investment companies. Investment companies raise on debtors to make profits. They don't care about anything else. So they will look at United and think, how can we flip this in 3-4 years for a lot of money? Or billionaires. And billionaires' ego typically doesn't allow them to let someone else run a football club that they've invested in. So I don't see any prospect. Glazers have been trying to raise money for years. They sold off part of the football club. They've been doing this for quite a while. Back in 2020, they sold over 130 million, took that money out. And I said in the summer that the signings that they were making, they weren't going to be around to pay them. Casemiro, to me, was a perfect example of that. I mean, United have never allowed the club to sign 29, 30-year-olds onto 4-year contracts. They wouldn't even sign their own players to a 4-year contract at that age. And so this is, when they did that, it was a complete departure of how they did business. And I knew that they weren't caring about resale value anymore because they weren't going to be around to realise that. My guess is United will get sold in the next quarter, in the first quarter of next year. There's obviously interest, but where it gets a bit tricky, and I think the Glazers had a time machine, and they go back and sell a club in the summer, is now the Premier League there's going to be an independent regulator appointed. That is not good for people like investment companies and what have you, because rules and regulations are the antithesis to investment companies. I mean, we see this on Wall Street. We see it everywhere else. They hate regulation because it means they have to act ethically,
Yeah.
which they don't like to do. And of course, for United, it's an issue where, what type of billionaire are they going to let buy the club? The Chinese can't play, the Russians can't play. So you're limited to a very small amount of people. And will it be better? It'll be better in some sense. When you heard Ten Hag talk about it, yes, there'll be more money available and everything else. But, there's an old saying, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world but to lose his soul? And I think United have to be very careful. It's very easy to want to go to a lot of these Middle Eastern billionaires, where there's nothing wrong with a Middle Eastern billionaire, where the issue is the source of the money. And if it's coming from people that have no regard for human rights, I think that's a travesty for a football club like Manchester United, because I still think United can be owned by responsible people and not need that type of oil investment or investment from despots, and still be successful.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I will come to you a little bit more in terms of who these prospective buyers would be. Keane, from more our side of things, obviously we don't have our ears close to the ground as Phil. Is it a case of, if we're sat here at the end of the season and we have new owners, has the magic wand been waved and is everything better? Or is it a case of now it's the pressure's on them, really, because we're still Manchester United? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, if you get new owners in, regardless who it is, whether it's, I see people throwing comments in there like Jim Ratcliffe or Apple or, Middle Eastern owners, whoever it may be, again, it's not just going to be a magic wand job and, United are going to be winning the Premier League straight away and we're going to be fighting for Champions League and we're winning the treble. That's not going to happen. I think you have to look at it from perspective. There's been 17 years of damage that needs to be repaired to this football club. The academy needs to be rebuilt. The stadium needs to be repaired. There's a lot of players at the football club who probably shouldn't be playing with the club that need to be offloaded. I think Ten Hag's a very good manager, and with investment, I think he could do very well. But I think with the amount of damage that Glazers have done, and you look at especially if you look in the last decade post Sir Alex, we've had so many different managers, different styles of play. We're hoarding players at the moment. There's players at the club who shouldn't be there, but they're out on loan at the minute.
Yeah.
There's players at the club, who we have stuck on very big contracts and we struggle to sell. Even with new owners, that's going to be the case. But when I look at a light at the end of the tunnel, once they leave and Manchester United are allowed to be that, they slowly but surely start becoming that successful team on the pitch. Then, Phil said it a few minutes ago, that United aren't an attractive prospect. At the minute, yes, but when the club starts getting rebuilt with new owners, we will start becoming that kind of attractive prospect again. But
yeah,
I do think people need to really err on the side of caution if and when we do get sold, because again, as I said a minute ago, there's 17 years worth of damage done.
I feel there's a lot of absolutionists on Twitter that are like, right, it's fine, we'll get sold and then we'll win everything. Is it? No, we won't. We'll get sold and then we'll have the 2 years of fixing everything that's wrong.
Yeah. And even if you look as well, there's many things that I think still need sorting on the pitch within the club. If you look at defensively, I think midfield, we still need a massive rebuild. Up front, well, I was talking about this to one of the lads earlier, looking at the strikers in particular. Manchester, when's the last time we signed a striker in their prime?
Lukaku,
yeah, you could probably say that, but he was still kind of raw and young, kind of in and around then. He had a few seasons at Everton, but when's the last time we signed someone in their prime that wasn't a commercial signing? Probably
Van Persie, maybe?
Yeah.
Van Persie's 29? Casemiro.
Yeah.
Casemiro, not a striker, but a player in his prime that we signed.
Yeah, it's again, there's so many things that are going to be need to happen, that need to be done when these leave, and I don't trust I don't trust this to happen smoothly. I think there's going to be bumps along the road.
It has to be. It's Man United. Nothing's.
Yeah,
It's not just going to
nothing's
be.
done easily at this football club, is it? Like,
No.
so even on the pitch when we were winning everything, we never done it easy either, did we? Like, so
Yeah. No, that's very true.
you know, there's always a caveat, there's always a story. But look, when a couple that's 6 weeks ago now, when that 24 hours where the Ronaldo story broke, and like we were talking, it was kind of a weird day when he left, when obviously he's leaving the club, and then a few hours later when the statement broke out from Sky and we seen that there could be potential sale. It was massive, like, you know. But last couple of months, we've been hearing murmurs of like a sale happening or a potential sale, and like this is the most we've probably heard in a long, long time under this ownership that something though positive could be happening. So look, it's one of them where I just hope that we can see light at the end of the tunnel. We can see these parasites leave, and most importantly, get our club back.
Yeah. Absolutely. We need a cultural reset, like we said earlier on as well. It's like a cultural reset as well. And I was going to ask Phil, is it a case of Man United have to be an attractive proposition off the pitch before they are?
Well, I don't think we're getting a cultural reset, lads. I think we get a culture that's commensurate with big business. It's simple as that. So, and what I meant by my comment earlier about being a bit soulless.
Yeah.
Manchester City couldn't sell out their stadium after winning the league. And I don't care what they say, but there's a certain emptiness in their success that even their own fans feel. That it's not based on sport and merit, which is what we celebrate at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. Sort of feels like the fifth goal in a 5-0 win. When you start winning leagues and you start winning things where it's really not based on merit. It's based on the fact that you have these wealthy owners that can buy anyone they want.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be very careful with this. It's almost like cheat mode in Football Manager where the wins don't really mean anything anymore because you don't lose. And I just feel like I understand the honey trap here, and I understand why United fans and I totally understand why Newcastle fans would want this for a while. But I would also caution that's not a panacea. That competition matters, and I don't want to see a situation where United are in competition not with Manchester City or Newcastle or Liverpool or Arsenal, but with a country, a state. And I think United are such a commercial machine when things are going well. They don't need that. And we look at things that matter to us, lads. We look at things like United have had an academy player in the first team since the 30s and all that. Those things will go, right? I mean, if you care about tradition, you care about what matters to the football club, you care about things like they're linked to the academy, then you should care about who owns a football club. I mean, because those things will disappear as United become further and further removed from their identity, which they will. And maybe that's inevitable, I don't know. But I just think we have to be very careful about, if you look at Manchester City, if the Manchester City owners had bought Leyton Orient, they'd be in exactly the same situation. Manchester City died when they were bought. All that remains is a badge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing about Manchester City today that bears any resemblance to the Manchester City at Main Road and the city of Franny Lee and all that. That's gone. They have no culture anymore. They have no identifying traits other than wealthy football club that can buy who they want. That's what happens when you have that much money. Culture, all the things that matter to you and me, they get in the way of success. So honestly, I think we have to be careful about that.
And it certainly is a honey trap, and obviously it's lucrative especially when the money that's been banded about for the Manchester United sale is going to be. It looks like it's going to be the biggest sale of any football club sort of ever. Is that a realistic amount to sort of expect, or is it going to come down a bit between 6 and 7 billion? Because that's nearly double what Chelsea went for. And I know Man United are much bigger than Chelsea, and I'm not saying they aren't, but and the position that the club are in, the fact that the Glazers are obviously actively looking to sell, they're not. Man United aren't a success on the pitch. It seems strange to me that it would go for
Well,
over
here's the
double.
thing, lads. First of all, I don't see Apple or Amazon ban Manchester United, and I wouldn't even think the Premier League would allow that.
No,
They're
I
both
don't
they're
think they'd allow. No,
they're
because
both broadcasters,
yeah,
and they're not going to let either broadcaster own the biggest commercial machine in their international television rights and domestic television rights, knowing exactly what will happen a couple of years down the line. That United will remove themselves from
so the
collective
Murdoch
bargaining.
thing years ago, isn't it?
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
secondly, like I said, there's going to be two types of buyers. There's going to be those that are price conscious and those that aren't. The Glazers need the latter. They need someone that isn't price conscious, because if they're price conscious and I'm a billionaire, the first thing I'm going to say is let United bleed. And because the price is going to come down, because they don't have the money anymore to run the football club. This is what savvy business people do, is when they want to buy a business that's in trouble, they let it bleed, and then they come in, like hawks do, venture capitalists do. They buy companies to turn them around. Their intention is to buy that at the lowest acquisition cost possible. They don't really care what you go through to get there. That's not their objective. It also makes it much easier to monetize success when you've had a significant period of pain, because everything feels good whenever you start to move in the right direction, as we found out, when Ten Hag started winning games. We defined that as success in any other season we wouldn't have, but it's the contrast from what was and what is. So I think for the Glazers, they're paying a price for their own parsimony and not investing in Manchester United, which now makes it only attractive to two types of people. To billionaires who don't care, and there aren't many of those, or an investment company which is going to let it bleed. So I'm not really optimistic that United are going to end up with a Jim Ratcliffe. I mean, I think Jim Ratcliffe would be the best option, but I have my doubts that United will be sold to Jim Ratcliffe. First of all, Jim is price conscious. Jim isn't going to pay what the Glazers want for it. And the number being thrown about was 3.75 billion plus debt. So you're really looking at 4.75 billion.
yeah,
Because there's not just the debt that they owe to the banks in terms of the LBO, but in terms of transfers, in terms of everything else. Then there's another billion to invest, right, in a stadium. Then you're looking at new players. So you're looking at, I was listening to Bill Foley talk earlier, who bought Bournemouth, and why he didn't ban MLS team. And it was interesting to hear how they feel they can improve Bournemouth, but what the investment is going to require to improve Bournemouth. So you have to factor that in when United, if you're going, because what United and Liverpool have both determined is they cannot be commercially successful whilst not winning trophies. And neither of them are in a position to compete with Newcastle or City. So this is a time to sell. So if you're going to buy Manchester United and you want to turn it into a successful business that generates money and everything else, that isn't just going to end up with a massive windfall due to a Super League because of their history, the investment is massive.
yeah. No, that's fair, and I get you. Like, obviously, I do think Ratcliffe would be the best case scenario. I think Keane, are you in that boat as well? Would you think Ratcliffe would be the best case scenario in terms of, obviously he's not going to own it himself, but if he was to front up a group or something like that, would you suggest that would be the best thing?
Yeah, look, I think because he's obviously a United fan, I think that's something that I would like to see if he came in and took over. I think obviously, look, I think the worst case scenario is another crowd like the Glazers, I think with the new kind of anti-Glazer kind of legislation that's been brought in anyway, that we won't get anyone maybe as bad as them. But I think at the moment, I think we just have to be conscious who we're bringing in, because as Phil said earlier, I'd hate to think that some of the history and traditions of our club would just be shat on if those certain owners came in. Like, obviously, players from the academy not being brought through. Lord forbid if Old Trafford was to be knocked down and we were relocated to things like that.
Yeah.
That for me would, it would hurt. Like it really would. So I think for me, it has to be someone who comes in, who will want to come in, want to invest, want to get this club back to the pinnacle of English football, but also while doing that, respecting the history, respecting the tradition, and for as well communicates with the fans. Because I think this obviously this ownership doesn't communicate with the fans. They have the odd Zoom call. We never see any positive outcome from these Zoom calls, supposed Zoom calls that happen. And look, I don't agree with some of the representation of the fans with that. But look, again, that's my opinion with regards to that. But there's just a lot of stuff that's happened, with this football club since they've come in. I think a lot of us at the minute have, like, I suppose it's like being in a bad relationship and you come out of it and you have trust issues. This is the exact same thing. Like, as fans, we're going to want the right people there who will have the right intentions to make sure this football club is thriving, and it's not for the worst. So I just hope that we can get a good ownership in there and just get back to where we need to be, because like Phil said, we're competing against state ownership right now in terms of Manchester City and Newcastle, and also we have to remember Liverpool are also up for sale.
Liverpool, yeah.
Yes,
Liverpool right now, on the field asset are more lucrative than Manchester United are. If you're looking to buy purely an on the field asset, if you're an owner and you don't care, you just want to own a Premier League club right now on the fields, you would rather own Liverpool than Manchester United. I don't think I think that's probably right. Maybe not in terms of commercially, but in terms of, like, if you want an on the field asset that's going to bring you success and that sort of deals with that sort of thing, I think Liverpool are in a better position just now than Manchester United.
You don't have as much rebuilding to do. You probably have to bring in a couple of $100 million worth of players, but when you look at the actual infrastructure around the club, there's probably not as much that needs to be repaired there.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, look, it's something that we're going to have to be conscious over. If you look at it as well, like Chelsea even bought by Bowley, if he's actually wanting to be successful there and wants to build something there, then that could be something to worry about as well. Like, I think that we just have to get this done as quickly as possible, because I think we're in a very finicky position right now where we need where this needs to happen quickly, because the amount of money that's going to be pumped into these football clubs, a rebuild that might take 5 or 6 years to get us back where we need to be actually might take a decade, because essentially you have these clubs who aren't going to go backwards. Like, we might go forwards and we might be rebuilding, but these clubs are like 5-6 years ahead of that. Then obviously they're run by state-owned owners, so it's just something that's going to take time, and it's somewhat disheartening when you consider where we were as a football club.
Yeah, absolutely. And when Phil was on about letting it bleed, hopefully they've let Man United bleed long enough, and this is coming to an end soon. One last thing I do want to ask you, Phil, it's been mentioned a few times in the comments, Avram Glazer was in Qatar through the week. Do you think that's something to do with, he doesn't care about football, so he's not going to be there to watch the World Cup. So is he there for reasons, or is he there to just be like people talking about him and speculation? Or
Avram Glazer, the reason why the Rain Group are handling this, and Avram Glazer is not involved in direct negotiations. When you're selling an asset this size, the last thing you want to do is have direct negotiations with the actual owner themselves. It's a bit like having a lawyer represent you, because you don't want to say something, commit to something that otherwise people who are paid are analysts to advise you on what not to. When you're buying someone's house, you deal with the broker before you get to deal with the owners. Because they're in control of the sale. So I don't believe Avram Glazer being in Qatar is related to United being sold. There's obviously interest in the football club, as you would expect, and the Rain Group will do a good job, but this is not the summer. Even 6-7 months ago, Chelsea had a deadline; it had to be sold. There was over 100 bids for Chelsea. When you have to get letters of intent, you have to get proof of funds, and that takes a while. And there was no potential regulator on the horizon. Well, it's totally different with inflation and everything else. The fact that it's cost a lot more to borrow money. The Feds raised the interest rates again here yesterday, which is massive for here. So, I think when you look at all these factors, I think I mean, first of all, it's completely unsustainable for United to continue in the current guise. I think United will get sold by the end of the first quarter. I would also say that whatever they do in January, whatever they spend, we have to remember what if United go out and spend 50 million on a striker, it's around an hour for a billionaire. It's nothing. It'll have
Yeah,
no impact
50
on.
millions.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Yeah,
For but where it does where it is a major issue is if the Glazers weren't going to sell the football club, and United have FFP concerns, which is a total disgrace. And so I think for the Glazers, it's not costing them money to own United. So they'll want this deal done quickly, but I don't think he was in Qatar for any other reason. He's probably got multiple different business interests, and so I know he's in a Formula One team. He's cricket and everything, so I don't think anything to do with United being sold. That'll be handled by brokers.
yeah, just sort of flaunting the fact that he can be there to sort of mingle
Yeah.
with other business people.
Well, I mean, if you can ask him if it's for sale. I mean, Jim Ratcliffe asked him if it's for sale, but the actual process of the sale, price, everything else, they'll have nothing to. I mean, they obviously will have a number in mind that they'll give for the
Yeah.
Rain Group, but in terms of negotiations, and everything, there's a reason why they're paying massive commission to these people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I do want to come on to January now. Obviously, Cristiano Ronaldo leaving in the last few weeks, I think personally it was the right decision. I don't know about you guys. I think after that interview, it was completely unsustainable at the football club. Don't think there was a way back for him. Don't think there. I'd be surprised if there ever is a way back. I'm sure there will be in years to come. Roy Keane's come back, etc. But I think a lot of Man United fans are going to take a while to sort of get over that interview and sort of how it blew up. So what do United do now then? Keane, I'll come to you first. Do you think United go out and spend money in January with these FFP concerns? Do you think it's going to be a loan? Think Cody Gakpo, who's had a very good World Cup, might be an option. What do you see? Because Man United need a striker. We've lost Ronaldo. I know he didn't play a lot of minutes, but we still need one.
Yeah, like look, if you look at Martial, he can't stay fit. Like he's a great fit for Ten Hag's system, but he can't stay fit. So we definitely do need a striker. And look again, if the transfer fees are paid in installments, and then hopefully we can go out and get like a Cody Gakpo or someone like that. Now, if that's something that if we can't go out and get a permanent deal, then I know João Felix is wanting to leave Atletico Madrid. If we can get a loan with an obligation to buy there, I think that would be an interesting one. He's a very good player, really like him, and I think him as a false nine in United in this current system would work a treat. Obviously, look, it's probably going to be a hard deal to do, but someone I definitely would love to see at the club. I just hope it's not another like short-term striker. You know, I've got attached to Igalo and Cavani when they're at the club. They were cult heroes of mine when they were there. Did like them. But yeah, like look, I'd love to see us go out there and get someone who's a good fit for the system. Because Ten Hag, I think, has shown that this system can be really effective. And look, I'm sick of us going out and buying these commercial players. So we need to go out now and start getting players to fit the way of playing. And look, hopefully we can do that in January. But if not, and we have new ownership in the summer, then look, hopefully we can get that striker in then. But I'll be lighting a few candles, getting a few rosary beads out, and hoping that Anthony Martial can stay fit for the rest of the season. But yeah, look, it's one of them.
I'd love Cody Gakpo. I don't care what Elon says there about him not calling the Dutch. He's unreal. He's so good. Like Holland were better in that World Cup when Cody Gakpo was moved central. If he's he's a striker. Yes, he's a young player, but he's good. And I know Man United were interested in the summer, but I just don't know. I don't know how stringent the FFP restrictions are. What does it sort of limit, Phil? Does it limit a £50 million signing in January? Is it a case it's going to have to be someone like Memphis Depay in on a free? Is it what sort of happens? Can we expect a striker, or should we just expect nothing? And if we get something, be happy with it, as has been the case.
I think if you were to send a striker, let's say nothing was changed, they pull that out of the summer's budget. So I mean, I've already asked about this. So obviously Ten Hag wants a striker. He needs a striker. He will. You know, when you want someone like Sesko, Arnautovic, players like that, Sebastian Haller, he clearly likes to play with a big, tall target man.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Gakpo's that. He was excellent in the World Cup, of course. Someone that typically plays out wide, I believe. So I don't know. Ten Hag will know him, obviously. I think at this moment in time, if Ten Hag signed Heather Mills for left back, I would trust him. Because he has done an unbelievable job with the signings that he's made. And so I think, I think they badly need a striker, obviously. And Ronaldo did the interview knowing exactly what was going to happen. I mean, he's not stupid. He's been in professional football 20 years. He knew exactly what was going to happen. I mean, any idiot doing that interview against their employee knows exactly what's coming. And it obviously saved United quite a bit of money, as it was reflected in their accounts. But whether that results in a signing in January, I think it would be a crying shame if it wasn't the case. Ten Hag's won 14 out of 19 since the Brentford game, which is truly unbelievable. And to not back him, I mean, United have done this so many times to managers where they haven't backed him, left him in awful situations. They should have went out and signed a striker last January when Ranić told them to. They didn't. Had they signed Vlahovic last January, they wouldn't be in this situation, but they didn't. So I hope they do listen. I hope it's not Memphis Depay. Memphis Depay is not a Manchester United level striker. But again, if Ten Hag signed him, I'd have to accept that he clearly believes that he is, and he's earned my trust.
Yeah, I do think Memphis was also dealt quite a rough hand, and when he came to Manchester United, he was sort of dropped in the middle of Manchester, 18-year-old kid, didn't speak a lick of English, and just chucked into a big mansion with no
he spoke English, but the thing is, here's the thing though.
He was just chucked. He was just sort of thrown in.
When you get a chance at Manchester, but hold on, when you get a chance at Manchester United, this is my issue with Van de Beek and Pogba and everything else. You don't get 3 years to carve out a career at United. You have to take your chance when it comes. Marcus Rashford was given his debut against Midtjylland when he was called up during the warm-up. Took it, scored 2 goals, scored against Arsenal, and took his chance when it comes. So when you get your chance at Manchester United, you have to take it.
I do think if a foreign player had the last 18 months that Rashford had, though, he wouldn't still be at Man United. So I do think Rashford does get a longer rope in that sense.
But Rashford's body of work by that stage was totally different.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about, when you get your chance at United, if you go off a boil 4 or 5 years later, fine. That's totally fine. But it would be unfair to view Rashford. We talked about earlier about Rashford not being in the right headspace. That has to be considered. Memphis Depay was signed by his national team manager, right? Yeah. There was a massive Dutch contingent at Manchester United at that time. And had he have gone to Barcelona or any other top club, he probably wouldn't have got as long. Right. He had a period of really good form when Luke Shaw was in good form. But the fact of the matter is, he wasn't consistent enough. And he's not consistent. He wasn't consistent enough at Barcelona either, right? And so started out okay. There's a reason why they're happy. They're not giving you Frankie de Jong on a free transfer, but they'll give you Memphis Depay on a free transfer. If Memphis Depay had market value, where other clubs were interested in him, Barcelona released him on a free. I mean, they need the money. So when another club's releasing a player in his prime on a free just to get him off the wages, that concerns me.
No, absolutely. Like you say, if Man United were to make that decision, which
he shouldn't have been showing up in Rolls Royces when he was told not to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let me tell you, I don't like this Garnacho attitude problem. Did Lee Sharp and Ryan Giggs have an attitude problem whenever Ferguson showed up at their house? All kids have attitude problems, right? All 18-year-olds have attitude problems, right? They're not robots. So I'm not, a massive critic of his attitude, because I think it is unfair on a lot of kids. We see what Phil Foden did, and whenever Foden and Greenwood and all these kids, are catapulted into a world where they're forensically analysed in every move, and then they're surrounded by people that sell stories, as we saw with Rebecca Vardy doing this. There's so much money in outing people. Did Rio Ferdinand have an attitude problem? Of course he did. Right? You know, Rio Ferdinand was banned for 9 months for accidentally missing a drug test. Right? So we won't say what was going on afterwards, after that Arsenal game. But anyway, we'll leave that to... I don't really know. Better say I have no idea. But anyway, the thing is, I judge Memphis Depay on what he did on the pitch.
Yeah.
I don't think Memphis Depay is a better player much than what United had when they first got him. And I think he went to Lyon, went to Barcelona because they had no money. And now they signed players with money they didn't have. They want to bin him. So maybe, you know, Van Gaal said he was integral to their team, you know, so... But is that the best Dutch team we've seen in our lifetime? I mean, it's not commensurate with any previous Dutch team I've seen.
I think Gakpo would be a better option than Depay. I agree. You just don't know United. We've been in the situation where we're getting a Gallo, but then you're.
But that's what Depay is. But that's what Depay is. He's in a Gallo. He's a stopgap. Yeah. And then you're going to turn around 6 months from now and send a real striker. What are you going to do with Depay?
Yeah.
You know, who's going to take him? If you can't, Barcelona can't get rid of him on a free, how are United supposed to get rid of him in 6 months?
Yeah.
I mean, is he a long-term option? I don't think so.
Probably not. And then I don't think there's a long-term option available in January. That's the thing.
I think you give Vlahovic or Juventus.
Yeah, they're in turmoil, I suppose. They're in a bit of crisis. Last thing I do want to touch on, there are the two best centre-backs in the Premier League are competing on Sunday afternoon, for the World Cup final. It's Varane versus Martinez. We're going to have a World Cup winner in our back four. I've been mightily impressed with Varane this tournament. I think he's shut up a lot of people and doing a lot of the basics right. He was fit for it as well, fit to start. Obviously, there's speculation it might be a bit ill. And I think every Man United fan's fallen in love with Sandro Martinez in the first 6 months. His fight, his desire, his want to win, and his want to play hard. And he seems to love the club. Keane, I saw you put up a comment earlier saying, come on, France. Is it France to win for you on Sunday? Do you want them to ruin Messi's party? Do you want to see Varane lift it over Wika?
Look, I love Martinez, right? And I made this clear to you the other day, Greg. I love Martinez. He's an absolute bastard, and I love him. Like, you know, he's just one of them, like, proper Man United centre half. But look, my Messi agenda reigns over. I love for Sandro Martinez. I want that party to be halted. But look, just imagine this: 2-time World Cup winner, 4-time Champions League winner. Yeah. Rafael Varane does that. He's an all-timer. He's an absolute all-timer. You'd have to put him in that conversation. If he wins them 2 World Cups and 4 Champions Leagues, you have to put Varane in that conversation. You would really have to, in terms of like the all-time great centre halves. But like, look, equally, if Martinez wins it, then we've 2 World Cup winning centre halves and just their aura, and then it'll stop Haaland in the rematch that aura will stop him. But yeah, look, it's gonna be a good game. I'm hoping. Though it's not like previous World Cup finals where, you know, you remember Holland against Spain, there was a load of yellow cards, wasn't a great game, and then you look at Argentina Germany was crap as well. Like, look, if you look at the Croatia France one, there was goals there. Like, well, look, I just love if France done it again, and it actually, when you look at their midfield and stuff like that, losing Kante, losing Pogba, losing Benzema, losing players like that, and still going on to win it, I'd actually think that would probably top 2018, considering the wealth of experience that they actually did lose within their team.
No, I don't know. I feel like I want to have 2 World Cup winning centre backs. As much as I want Varane to win both. As much as I do. Phil, what about yourself? Are you backing Varane or Martinez on? Are you backing Messi or
first of all,
you're one for the purists. You want Messi to finally get the.
My wife's family are South American. If they heard you said Martinez, they'd strangle you. Trust me, because I have to listen to them whenever I hear English commentators say Martinez. They're like, so should we just call Martin Peters Martine Peters? Because sorry, I just want to say is there Martinez. I think I really don't care which one of them win it. We've had World Cup winners in the past, and Cleverson will never seem to translate to to better performances on the pitch. But what I will say is this: they're the quintessential good cop, bad cop, right? You know, because they're completely different players, and they're loved for completely different reasons. You know, Varane is silk. You know, if I was a forward, which one would I rather play against? Truthfully, neither. Which is partly why they're such a great pairing, because they complement each other so well, given their different skill set. And I think Lisandro Martinez is an example. It should be a propedeutic to every other Manchester United signing that this is how, even if you weren't very good, this is how you endear yourself to a football club and their fans, by making sure you take the field and all the intangibles are correct. Your effort, your focus, your discipline, your diet, you're a professional, you don't surrender on the field like United were doing last season. And that, of course, is infectious. That means that he's been like this from day one. And I think is probably one of the best non-captains at the football club, because, you know, when United were at their peak, they had 6 or 7 captains on the field. One guy wore the armband, but there was lots of leaders. And last season we were asking, where's our leaders? You know, and I think in order to get a leader, you have to have a very clear destination of where you want someone to lead you to. And for the first time, the football club has that. And I think Lisandro Martinez is someone that not just sets really high standards for himself, but won't accept someone else. You know, if you want to behave like a smack Darcy at United, you're going to stand out right now for all the wrong reasons. As Cristiano Ronaldo found out, that behaviour last season would have blended in. And a big part of the reason why it doesn't anymore is people like Lisandro Martinez completely changing the whole dynamic of the dressing room and on the field. So I slightly like him more than Varane, but they're both exceptional.
I agree with that.
Joe Moroni.
Varane's like the James Bond. Yeah. Varane's like the James Bond, all suave and sophisticated.
Yes, 100%, mate.
Martinez just comes in, building a China shop, doesn't care, just wipes everyone out. Sorry, Martinez, not Martinez. Sorry. It's just a shame that
do you know what? To be fair, I live with Mexicans and Hispanic people every day, so I speak Spanish pretty much, and so I'm 90% fluent in Spanish. So I'm so familiar with the pronunciations, and so, you know, obviously the other thing, I mean, being arsehole, but the whole good evening thing with Unai Emery is, to me, so offensive. And
I don't understand that. Like, he's trying.
Well, I live abroad and I have an accent, and I have repeatedly, you know, but the people that mock my accent is usually something that infuriates me so much I put my fucking fist down their throat, because it's never intended to be light ribbon, and it usually comes from bigots. You know, this is a guy I'm surrounded by people who speak Spanish as a first language. 2 of my children's godparents are from Mexico. And these are polyglots. These are highly intelligent people that their culture and their language also needs to be respected. No, obviously, if it's deliberate, that's different. And yours isn't deliberate, mate. I'm just saying, like, to me, I did a podcast here 2 or 3 weeks ago with a guy, and I honestly wanted to delete the podcast and never come back on it again. He thought it was funny to make fun of Mexicans because we're talking about the World Cup, and of course I didn't laugh.
No,
and I just
it wasn't us, by the way.
No, it wasn't yours. It was actually.
I was making sure it wasn't there.
No, it was a list. It was actually one of the Leicester City podcasts who had asked me to do a Q&A for him. And it bothered me. It really fucking bothered me, because, as I said, my children are half Hispanic, right? Yeah. Secondly, I'm surrounded by these people who are the kindest, most amazing people in the world, and I don't like a lot of the disrespect. I mean, if Hispanic commentators were running around saying Martine Peters, I'm quite sure the English would have no problems correcting them and saying that's not how it's said. So, but I wasn't getting at you, mate, by the way, because you're a lovely lad. I'm just saying in general. I hear it done all the time. It's just one of the reasons why I don't know if you get Derek Ray over there. He's a Scottish commentator, does BBC and everything. He does it out here. Fucking magnificent. Makes an effort to learn. Yeah, he's Scottish lad.
He's amazing. He's so
absolutely
good.
pure
Amazon
class
all the time. He's
right?
Unbelievable. Yeah.
But he makes an effort before every game to learn the local pronunciation of players, and it irritates people because they want to hear it pronounced in the way they're familiar. But that's one of the things, Keane, I'm sorry to pick us on a tangent, but one of the things that irritated the living shit out of me was when Kevin Gallagher was doing goal for Liverpool, how many people deliberately, funnily butchered his name, right? It's not fucking funny, all right? Keane, haha, what is it? Are you a fucking idiot? Because there's a thing called the Google search that will teach you how to pronunciate properly. And I'm quite sure the people doing this, if they were to have their names repeatedly butchered, wouldn't find it funny. Yeah. So I did, but that's obviously not aimed at you. It's aimed at people who do this deliberately because they think it's funny, and it's not acceptable to me.
No, I agree, and I will say with the.
Sorry, Ken, that sounds terrible. It sounds like I was getting at you, but I absolutely was not getting at you. This is aimed at the arseholes on Twitter and everything that do the good evening shit and all this, and who know better, and it's aimed at commentators who are paid to know the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting listening to stuff. You should hear the stuff I have to listen to when Portugal play. I mean, it's a total embarrassment.
Yeah, and people like, as Ailey says, they're Paul
Alexi Wallace.
As Pelketa, it's not even an attempt. But no,
just make an effort.
I think I'm in your side of things, Phil. That I want Martinez to win more on Sunday than Varane. It's just a shame that he's 5'9", and that's the real one thing that you just can't be a centre half at this level at 5'9". That's just the one thing. I love how quickly that went away as well. How quickly people watched him play 4 or 5 games and went, "Oh, it doesn't matter that he's 5'9" anymore." But I think that'll wrap up the show.
Really.
We spoke Glazers, we've spoke sales. Hopefully, the next time that we're all chatting, Manchester United have a prospective buyer. They have a buyer, and things are moving along, and we're finally getting free of this. And hopefully in January, like we all said, we do buy a striker. Guys, make sure you go and listen to Beyond the Pitch with Phil. It's fantastic.
Thank you, lads.
Anything happens with Man United, get on Twitter, check him out. He'll have an opinion. He'll be on a show. He'll be doing something. And if you want, basically right up to sort of ear close to the ground sort of stuff and his opinions, and it's more than just sort of opinions. It's a lot of experience and things like this to know where things are coming from. There's a little bit more to it than just sort of someone like myself just tweeting an opinion. There's a bit more.
I'm no better than anyone else. No, seriously, I appreciate the kind words, but I'm no better than anyone else. I'm not even the best informed person. I just happen to know certain people, which helps me, but I appreciate that very much. Thank you, lads.
No problem at all. And Keane, is there anything in particular you want to plug on here? We're back, obviously, doing constant shows now. Man United are back, not in that sense, not in the Rio Ferdinand sense, but the Man United shows are back. Is there anything you want to plug, any big shows or anything coming up?
Yeah, look, we've had a bit of time off there the last few weeks, the World Cup. So, yeah, look, we're glad to be back. Look, I suppose we'll have a preview Tuesday night on the Burnley game. Myself and Greg will be going to the game. He has the Peronis ready when I get off the plane. So he'll have the Peronis ready for me. But, yeah, look, we'll have a preview. We'll have a panel show and previewing the Burnley game next week. And then also we'll probably do a show, probably rounded up the Christmas. We probably might do a quiz or something. Get all the lads on, even Sean, Steve, all the Tottenham and Chelsea fans on. We'll do a Premier League quiz or something. But yeah, look, thanks very much everyone tuning in. Thanks to Phil for coming on as well. And look, it's good to be back. It's good that Man United are back. And look, Viva la France. This weekend, Raphael Varane, let's hope he goes out and does the business for me. But thanks very much everyone for watching, and hope you all have a good week.
Thank you, lad.